Hello, guys. I see some people are already starting to file in. I see some chat notifications. We're going to get started here in about 1 more minute at 7:03 on the dot. We'll go ahead and get started, and then anyone who catches up later can either refresh it or watch it, or same for people watching it later. So I won't make you guys wait too much longer. That we're here right at 7. So give it here another 30 seconds, and we'll get going. All right, welcome back. So glad you decided to come back for round two. So the first thing I'll say is, uh, if you haven't watched the last week's class on where we started, definitely go there and watch that first. If you want, you can stay and watch along, but we're going to kind of build on some of the things we talked about last time. I'm going to reference some of the things in that previous video. So if you haven't watched it, then maybe you might be a little confused, but you should be able to follow along for most of it. And hopefully you'll find that when you kind of layer last week on top of this week, you should have a really good foundation of personal finance and feel good about a plan that you can implement going forward in your life. And the one thing I'll kind of say that I've been telling people is, if you stick with me here in this video, I'll show you here in a little bit how with 100% certainty you can beat the stock market. I know that there's lots of crazy ideas out there, and I've got a method that I promise with 100% certainty will beat the stock market. So stick around for that, because I think you'll find it useful, and because, like I said, with 100% certainty, I can promise you it does work. So we're going to go ahead and get started with today's lesson. So what I want to talk about is we're going to talk about saving and investing in general. Then we're going to get into 401ks in general, kind of what is a 401k. And then we'll talk specifically what is a Betterment 401k. So Betterment's the company we use, and so we'll watch a little demo together. I'll kind of stop and explain some of the video along the way. But I also want to talk about like in general what they are first. So starting off with saving and investing, maybe you're someone who doesn't know very much about it, and that's okay. So some crazy things here on the slides for you. 55% of students report they've never had any exposure to financial education. No one's kind of taught them any of this stuff. 47% of Americans aren't investing their money. So maybe you find yourself in that 47, or maybe you're in the 53 that do. And then I think the biggest stat that's kind of jumps out is that last one. 30% of pre-retirees, so people that haven't retired, report they have no plan for deciding when to retire, despite when and how to retire being one of the most important decisions facing pre-retirees. So about 1 in 3 people don't know. They're just kind of shooting from the hip. And like we talked about last week with your financial goals, if you just shoot from the hip, you're bound to miss. It's way better to aim, have a plan, and think about it with a little bit more strategy and nuance. So maybe you're starting out and you're kind of feeling overwhelmed. That's okay. You're not in the minority, like we saw earlier. So that's okay. So the first thing I want to talk about in just kind of saving investing basics is compound interest. And so what is compound interest? Basically, what that means is it's this principle that if you put money into the stock market or into any sort of investment, let's say you put $100 in an investment. Well, let's say you get a 10% return interest rate, which that's really high, but it makes for easier figuring. Okay, so after a year, you're going to end up with $110. You put $100 in, it grew 10%. Well, going forward, your initial $10 grows at 10%, plus your earnings from previously also grow at that 10%. So you gain $11 because you have 10% of $110. So you add 11 to your 110, and then it keeps going up. And then the next year you have $12.10. And so each year you gain more and more because you get interest not only on your original investment, but also all of your earnings and gains. So the best example I have that shows this is think of 2 different people. The first person starts at age 25. Every year they put aside $5,000 towards retirement. So they started young, early, good. By the time they hit age 34, they stop. They don't put any more money into the stock market. Well, the second person they thought, well, I'll deal with retirement later. It's not that important. Like, once I make more money in the future, that's when you really want to start thinking about retirement. Not now. Now it's not important. So they started 10 years later at age 35, and they invest $5,000 each year for 30 years in a row until they hit, we'll say, retirement age of 65. So investor one only did 10 years. This person's investing 3 times as much money. But when you look at age 65, investor one has like $175,000 more than person two. So that just shows you you end up with that exponential curve that you see in this graph with compound interest. That's why it's important to start early. So maybe you're watching this and you're thinking, oh shoot, I'm already over 35 now. I'm definitely over 25. Or maybe you're 55, 65. Whatever age you are, the cool thing is this graph applies for 35 versus 45, 45 versus 55, and etc. So that's why it's really important to get started today, tomorrow. So I've talked to some people about the 401k and getting signed up, and I've said, I'm going to start next year, or when we get our next raise, I'm going to start. Now, that's better than never starting, but I would encourage you, even think about maybe starting this month. Um, I know we're closer than the year, less than a month away, but think about maybe doing it sooner, because the sooner you can get on this exponential curve, the faster and better it will be for your future. So uh, I know you would think the person that put in 30 years of investing will have more money, but this compound interest thing is so important and so huge and beneficial that's and this graphic, I think it uses like a 7% return, and so the higher the interest rate, the more dramatic this even is. So that's kind of the first principle you need to know about saving and investing is compound interest. Now we're going to talk about beating the stock market, and that is what we call dollar cost averaging. So basically what this means is at a regular interval you buy into the stock market. So we know in general, I know with stocks maybe have dipped a little bit this fall, but they're already starting to climb back up. But in general, stocks over time increase in price. But it's not a smooth, consistent growth. Instead, kind of goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and gradually works its way up with ups and downs. So, one thing you've probably heard is buy low, sell high. And so that's exactly what dollar cost averaging does. Basically, if you take a set amount of money, let's call it $100, and every paycheck or every month, any regular interval, you buy into the stock market, into your 401k, into any sort of investment, as long as it's the same investment. Like you can't buy $100 of McDonald's stock one month, $100 of Apple stock the next month, and you're going to get this. But if you put into the same thing every time, well, when the price dips, you're going to buy more shares of it. And when the price goes up, you're going to buy less shares of it. And so over time, without you even thinking about it or doing anything, you're going to end up the average price that you pay for stocks will be less than the average price of those stocks over that exact same time frame. And so you can say, yeah, that makes sense, like in theory, maybe, but let me see it. So here's an example I put together. So this person invests $100 every, well, let's say we'll call it month. So let's say the stock price goes 1, 5, back down to 2, up to 10, back down to 5, up to 20. Now, this is a pretty dramatic example. Usually over the course of a couple months, you're not going to see a stock price fluctuate this much. But what you're seeing here is that the price goes up and down. And what you can see is the number of shares purchased changes depending on the price, because I'm consistent in my amount invested. Well, if I take that middle column and I average it out, the average stock price is $7.17. But the person in this example, the average stock price of their investment is only $2.93, because they're, without trying, doing that thing we talked about earlier of buying low and selling high. So this dollar cost averaging principle is so important in order for you to really beat the stock market and make even more money. So the stock market, since like 1901 has averaged 7 to 8% return on your investment every year. But if you leverage dollar cost averaging and you say every single paycheck, I'm going to put some money aside, then you're going to do even better than that. And so we're going to come back to that principle in a little bit, because a 401k is something that's going to help you uh, do that without you having to think about it easy. And so what I like about this graphic here is it talks about it being low stress. Beating the stock market is something that's kind of easy. It shouldn't be spending hours every night watching Squawk Box or reading random internet articles about what's the hot stock. Like, I've never done that, and that's something that doesn't interest me. And if it's something that interests you, you're probably not watching this basic personal finance class. But that's okay, because anyone, even us people who aren't interested in that and don't know that much about it, can still beat the stock market. Okay, so we talked a little bit about compound interest and dollar cost averaging. And if we leverage those two things, we can really make a lot of save a lot of money towards whether it be retirement, kids' education, um, big purchases. You want to buy a house in the future, whatever it is. Those two philosophies work towards the same thing. So then the next question is, okay, so I know I can do that, but what do I buy? You said McDonald's stock, Apple stock. I could buy anything. So what is it that I should buy? Well, there's a lot of different things, but for the sake of being simple for this lesson, the number one thing I'd recommend is something called a target date fund. Basically, what that does is you pick a target date. So whether it be the day you want to retire, you want to buy a house in 15 years, you're pregnant now and your kid's going off to college in 18, 19 years, whatever it may be. Whatever you want to save for, you pick a date in the future. And so, for example, let's say, like, I think I have target date funds for 2060, looking to retire maybe at that time. Well, what it does is a group of financial experts, so people that work for these companies, whether it be Charles Schwab, Vanguard, people who do this for a living, everyone that buys into it, there's a bunch of people all around the world that all have kind of the same target date. They all want to save money until 2060. Well, they take everyone's money, pool it together, and buy different investments. So, and then over time, they're going to get less and less riskier as you get closer to the time you think you want to pull the money out. Because if you want to retire in 2060, if your portfolio goes down over the next month, who cares? You just care about what's it going to do in the next 40 years. So what it does is automatically balance that for you, so you don't have to think about it, because that can be a challenge. And so there's a bunch of good ones out there. My number one recommendation would be look for something with the lowest fees, because all the different ones, people are pretty smart. And so two of the lower fee ones I know are Vanguard, Charles Schwab, like I mentioned. Or once again, we're going to talk about Betterment and our 401k here coming up, but as a little kind of preview, one of the reasons we picked Betterment is because it automatically creates your own target date fund for you. And so if you sign up for this 401k, you don't have to think that it's going to ask you some questions. How old are you? How much money do you make? Are you married? What's your spouse's age? When do you plan on retiring? Okay, and in today's dollars, how much money a year do you want to have to spend? Because we know there's going to be inflation. So $50,000 today is going to be nothing. It's going to be nothing in like 50 years. In the year 2070, $50,000 is not going to be very much money at all. It seems like a lot of money now, but in the future it won't. So it'll ask you, what do you want today's dollars? And it'll automatically account for inflation. And so if you just do something like this target date fund and do like we said, dollar cost averaging consistently over time, and then you also utilize that compound interest. It's going to grow, and as it grows, and we see early here in this example, it's kind of highly volatile. You have almost all stocks at the beginning. Well, you're going to be able to leverage that dollar cost averaging, and that you should hopefully have more rapid growth in the beginning, so you can get started on that compound interest curve even sooner. So that's just kind of where I'd start. There's other things you can do with your money, and I'm not one to tell you buy into this stock or that stock. Everyone's got their ideas, but I'll say that that's what I would do. Now, people ask, what about like crypto or GameStop or AMC, those kind of things? If you want to have fun and do those things, great. But I would consider that purely fun money. I wouldn't do any of those kind of investments into retirement, kids' education, anything that's that important. I think that maybe there's some short-term gains that you could make, but you know what? There could also be some short-term losses that we've seen recently too. So if you want to do anything like that, have a fun money account on the side that you budget for. This is going to be my fun money. Maybe I'll make a bunch and then I can buy this really nice thing, or if I lose it, that's okay. I'm not counting on it. So I'd say any money you're going to count on, avoid those kind of things. It's the same with like a lottery ticket or scratch offs. Sometimes people think like, oh my gosh, I'm desperate, I'm in a hole. Maybe I'll hit it on this slot machine this one time and it'll solve all my problems. Maybe, but the odds are too low. You're much better off doing something safe and starting now, and you're working your way up. So now I want to talk about what a 401k is, because we launched ours with kind of Wojo McDonald's, our first 401k plan this year. And so honestly, just think of a 401k as like a doorway or a window. It's just a way that you pass money through and allows you to save taxes. Or it's kind of just like your checking account. It's a place you can put money into, but it's nothing too fancy. It's all on the computer. Like you can't put cash into it, but it's just a mechanism or a tool, a way that you can experience the different benefits of it. And so you know the right principles to saving money, and so this is the best kind of window or doorway to put your money through to have the most, I guess, advantages. And so what are some of those advantages? For one, it's easy. It's automatic payroll deductions. So we talked about dollar cost averaging. Would you look at that? A 401k automatically sets you up to do that and achieve that principle. So it's something that we take out of your paycheck and put it in there for you. You log on to Betterment and decide what you want to put your money in, and then from there we can we withdraw the money, and then Betterment kind of does it automatically. So it's an easy process that is something that you don't have to deal with every single paycheck or anything. You set it up once and then you go. So convenience is the first benefit, but these next two benefits are definitely the most important things of why a 401k is so awesome. The second one is that you save on taxes. So maybe you save on taxes in the beginning with a traditional 401k or at retirement with a Roth. And we're going to get into that in a minute, but a 401k saves you money on taxes that if you were to invest money if you were to go on to charlesschwab.com tonight, set up a investing account, put money in it, and just start investing. You can totally do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. And that's because you're not going to get the tax benefits that you will of a 401k. And the last benefit is maybe the best as well, between the one before this one, is employer matching. So we, Wojo McDonald's, are your employer. We want to encourage you to save for your future. I want all of you guys to have a fantastic retirement. I enjoy working with you now, but I'm excited for you to be able to comfortably not work for us in the future. That's something that would mean a lot to me. And so, as a little nudge to push you in that direction, we're essentially offering you a 3% raise. So for any dollar you put into your 401k up to 6% of your income will boost it 50%. So if you put 6% in, we'll add another 3% to your 401k. We're not going to give you the money outright, but we'll just put it in your 401k account for you. So basically, you can boost all of your investments by 50% out of the gate for your first 6%. If you want to do 10%, that's fine too. You're only going to get 3% from us. But if you do 6%, that's essentially 50% return on investment in the first year. So we talked about that exponential growth curve. Well, there's a big boost to that right off the bat. So we really want to help you do that. So those three things are what make a 401k so great. There's some employers that just offer a 401k with zero matching just because of the first two benefits. But like I said, it means a lot to us as Paul, Karen, Zach to see you guys be thriving financially, not just getting by. And so a way to kind of incentivize that saving is by them matching. Okay, so let's talk about the Roth or traditional 401k, because you know what, this stuff is confusing. So I found this graphic, and I think this is the best example that explains how this works. So we're going to pretend that money grows on trees. And so if you have a traditional Roth account, you put your money in sorry. Let me start over. It's a traditional Roth account. Start with a Roth 401k, not a traditional. We start with a Roth 401k. You see, Uncle Sam takes your money now. So let's say you make $50,000. On your tax return, you have to say you made $50,000. But when you take that money out, when you hit retirement age and the time where you can start withdrawing it, all the money you put in, as it's grown, you don't owe any taxes on any of that money. So if you put, let's say, $100,000 into your 401k over the 30, 40 years you're working, and it grows to $5 million, you don't owe a single dime of taxes on any of that. So that's why the Roth 401k is so great. But there's another option. It's the traditional 401k. So what that does is Uncle Sam doesn't get anything from when you earned it, but you do have to pay on withdrawal. So let's say you made $50,000, but you put, let's say, $10,000 into your 401k. Well, you get to put on your tax return that you only made $40,000 because you put 10 of that towards retirement. And Uncle Sam is only going to tax you on that $40,000. So you don't have to pay any taxes right now. But when you take that money out, as you withdraw it, you'll have to pay taxes on it then. And then the third alternative is don't use a 401k at all. And like we said, let's say you go to charlesschwab.com tonight and you create a brokerage account and you start investing. Well, you got to pay taxes both times then. If you make $50,000 and you put $10,000 into that account, you still got to pay tax on $50,000. And let's say you do that for years and years and it grows to $5 million, you still got to pay taxes on that $5 million too. So you get kind of Uncle Sam grabs you at the beginning and the end. So that raises a logical question then. Which do I pick? Do I do the Roth or do I do the traditional? Well, couple things. Number one, you can do both. So you can split it 50-50 if you're unsure, or 25-75. Betterment lets you set it up. You can reduce some of your income, and then you can reduce the tax you have to pay on your withdrawal in the future. And the other thing to matter is either one is a good option. So like for most people, it's pretty close to a 50-50 call. So you're not going to make a bad choice. If you pick Roth and maybe you should have picked traditional, you're still saving over that regular brokerage account. It's still going to give you a tax advantage. So don't sweat it too much. We talked about Betterment earlier. It will automatically, based off, it'll ask you questions and say, hey, we think you should use a Roth, or we think you should use a traditional. It's going to be a little bit different. The kind of rule of thumb is, when do you think you're going to be in a bigger tax bracket? So, you can start taking money out of your 401k at 59. But let's say you plan on working till maybe 65, 70, but you maybe want to start pulling out some of that money earlier. If you think you're going to be in a higher tax bracket when you retire, you should probably uh, invest in a Roth. If you think you're in a higher tax bracket now, like let's say you plan on retiring right at, and you're not going to touch any of this money beforehand, and you're going to start taking out after you retire, well, then you don't have any other income, so all your income is just going to be from your withdrawals, so you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. So then you should probably use a traditional. But like I said, don't get too bogged down on this question. Instead, think about both are good options. And if you use Betterment, once again, it'll ask you some questions and it'll give you a personalized recommendation. And so, the last thing I kind of want to talk about with 401ks is governments know that in saving, or I guess the U.S. government, I don't know if they have 401ks in other countries, but I can speak for the U.S. government. The U.S. government knows that this stuff is confusing, it's hard, but it's important. So there's laws in place. When we set up our 401k, it has to be easy for the consumer. So you're not allowed to make it. So if you sign up for our 401k, you can't pick any stock you want. You can't pick any ETF or bond or target date fund or uh, derivative, anything crypto, whatever it may be. Any of those kind of investments you want to make, you can't do that with a 401k. We can only give you a certain number of options so it's easy and not overwhelming. They want it to not be overwhelming. And so uh, maybe you're like, hey, I want to invest in Apple stock or whatever. I can't do that in my 401k. Well, the reason is because we're not allowed to offer that to you. There's laws that make it pretty limited. That way it's easier and it's not overwhelming. And so 401ks are designed for everybody, not just the savvy investor. They're designed, and the government. The reason the government is giving you these tax benefits is because they want to see you retire and as well, and so they want that to be available to every person, not just people that understand all this really well. Okay, so we've talked about now some of the principles of saving money and how 401k is basically the best way you can save that money. It's the best doorway to put your money through, the best window. It's better than just a regular brokerage account because you get all these benefits that we talked about earlier. And so what particular, and so let me tell you then about like Betterment in particular. So we talked to about 5 different 401k companies. We looked at different fee structures, um, the different user interfaces, the different apps, all the different things that a 401k offers. We want to make sure we had the best. And so here are the benefits we found with Betterment that we decided to use them. Number one, it's goal based. So it automatically, and we'll see this in a second, you can tell Betterment what you want to achieve, and it's going to help you do that and kind of give you recommendations on that. Number two, and this is one of the biggest, low cost. That it's you pay like a 0.02% fee every year, management fee on your money. And if you look into any other target date funds, ETFs, any other companies, you're going to find the fee structure is way higher than that. And so this is basically down there with the lowest you'll find out in the market. Like I said, it's like 0.02%. And so the reason they do that, it's a lot automated with computers and algorithms. And so they don't have as much overhead, so they can pass that savings on to us. So it's high tech. So like I said, it uses algorithms and it's really smart. And so it automatically adjusts and rebalances things over time. So we talked about those target date funds. Well, you're not going to see a target date fund in Betterment. It's automatically one. It is that for everyone. So whether you want to or not, you kind of answer the questions and it's going to automatically do that. And there's no additional fee to do that. That's just how it is for everyone. And then lastly, personalized. And so, yes, you can do this for retirement, but also you can use Betterment, like we talked about last week. The first kind of financial baby step, the first financial goal you should strive to achieve is $1,000 emergency fund. Well, you can set that up as a goal in Betterment too. So you can have all of your money stuff in one place. That's not through the 401k, but it's all in the same app, the same website. Plus, if you want, and to be honest, like just being honest with you, I don't use their bank account, but they have essentially, you can put cash in this too. So, and I think the last I saw their interest rate's over 3%. So, how many of you have a savings account that's making over 3%? My guess is not many, but you can use a Betterment savings account that's going to give you a 3% interest rate, and you can set little buckets. So, you can make a bucket for kids' Christmas, and every paycheck you can put we talked about last week making that budget so important and start when's the best time to start planning and budgeting for your kids' Christmas. It's probably December 26th of the year before. You can do that. You can make a Christmas gift bucket, and that every month, every couple weeks, you put an automated money into that bucket, and you can pause or cancel that anytime. And then Betterment will tell you, hey, you're on pace. You need to put this much money in a month if you want to spend $500 on all your kids' Christmas combined. Or if you want to have $1,000 emergency fund by July, let's say you pick July or whatever, you can set that bucket up too. And it'll tell you how much money you need to put in a month with the interest you're going to earn, which over 6 months isn't going to be that much. So it's going to be pretty close to $1,000. But any of those kind of things you want. And so it's all personalized. And that meant a lot to me to be able to offer something that was useful for everyone. And so you'll find that it's pretty intuitive and easy to understand. So that's why we chose Betterment. Now we're going to actually show you an example. So I'm going to play this video, and I'm going to kind of pause it and stop it and talk. I'm going to be watching it with you, but they're going to show you how to set it up for Betterment. And so to start off, number one, if you have worked for us for over a year and are 18 years or older, you are eligible for our 401k. That's all you have to be. 18 plus, work for us for a year. If you qualify, you have, with a 99% certainty, I'll say you have got the invite. So search in your email. I helped someone do this week already. Search for just the word Betterment, and you'll probably find it. Maybe you saw it and skipped over it, and maybe went to your junk folder. Search the term Betterment, and you'll find a link to get you set up. If you cannot find it, please reach out to your GM, and we can reach out to Mike at the office and get you a new one sent. But it's probably already there. The person I talked to said, oh, I never got the link. I never saw the sign up for 401k. I said, all right, I'll watch your spot. They pull up their phone, search in their email, and they found it. So that's where you start. And this is going to show you kind of about setting up. Okay.
This is the home overview. The left-hand side here, you'll see your navigation. So all the different accounts you have, your retirement 401k accounts will live up here, as well as all your other transactional document settings and so forth here on the left-hand side. Your home overview will give you all your accounts with us here at Betterment, your investment performance here as well, and then also any external connected accounts you may wish to connect. You can follow that flow and that'll take you right to it. We're going to click into our retirement or 401k goal and show you some basic functions. So this sample account does currently have a balance. This person has contributed both to a Roth and a traditional account. And currently they're contributing 6% of their income on a per pay period basis. So let's say we're going to go and up that Maybe we got a promotion or a raise and we want to increase this. Let's change it to 8%. Please do keep in mind, as I mentioned before, you can also contribute as a flat dollar. You'll just toggle between the top here and you can input that amount that works best for you. And again, this is per pay period, so what you want to contribute on that paycheck. We're going to go back to the percent and set it to 8. We'll click approve, and we'll go back to our page. As you can see, the prompts are going to ask for my approval a couple times, so I always encourage folks to navigate, click around. You're not going to change anything too dramatically, but certainly feel free, comfortable to navigate it and explore the site. This new rate, as you've made the change, will get sent to your plan administrator to update their records, update payroll. Please do keep in mind, it may take one payroll cycle in order to update your rate. As you can see here, our new...
Like he said, yeah, we'll get that information, and Mike's pretty fast about getting that uploaded. So it usually is that next pay period. It might be 1 or 2, but it's pretty darn quick. Every time before we run payroll, we can run a report and says who's changed their things on Betterment. We tell the payroll company, and they adjust the withdrawals automatically. So this does happen really fast.
Annual contribution amount is $4,800. So this is calculating based on some inputs that you did during the sign up, how much you'll be saving on a 12-month period. This is not how much you have saved for this current year. This is solely on a rolling 12-month forward outlook. So if we change this again to 10%, this would show $6,000. Some of the key features here under the plan is that projected retirement spending and outlook for you. Our current setup right now says we're a little bit off track and we're shy of what we want to be saving.
So this stuff that he's about to explain now is really important. And this is one of the things that really drew us to Betterment, is what you can see and how automatically you can see this information, because hiring a financial planner can be really expensive. And so the fact that this does this automated and it's so helpful, and you get all of this at no extra fee, was super important to us. So he's going to explain what this plan tab, so you see here this plan tab that he clicked on, he's going to show you what happens in this plan tab.
One of the more fun things I find is if you click Open Goal Forecaster, you'll get this pop-up, which you can change some of these inputs, such as how early or late you want to retire, the location at which you'll be retiring, as well as your annual contributions and how much you want to be spending. This look will change as you change those inputs to give you direction on how well you're saving. So let's say I want to retire earlier. I'm going to move to a lower cost of living. And I'm also going to increase my annual contributions to almost our recommendation. You can see here we went from 20% chance of meeting our goal to upwards of 56%. Let's say we change our retirement age to 67. So we're going to work an additional 6 years under this scenario. We're now on track. We're having 85% chance of meeting or exceeding our goal. And this graph here is showing you your balances over that time and certain projections of that as well.
So this also works with any goal you want to put in Betterment. So if you look here in the upper left-hand side of the screen, you're going to add new. Like I said earlier, you can put up here and do add new and do kids college fund. And you can get the same graph for that. You can do $1,000 emergency fund, and it'll look a little different. It won't say the words retirement, but the same kind of graph and what you're on track, all that for kind of any financial goal you want to set. Betterment will show you that as well.
So feel free to come in here, click around, change some inputs, or as your plan and years change, you can always come in here and adjust your plan. This other tab of how to save is a great way to understand other options available to you, not just through the 401k, but also outside of that. How best can you be increasing your savings for retirement? Again, these are all recommendations, but certainly insights to follow if you so wish. We're going to exit.
So that last thing he showed there about how to save, that's another thing that is really cool. So play around on that tab, because yeah, it'll tell you different ways to do. So it's going to be very helpful to tell you exactly what you need to do to achieve your goal. So we talked about how 30% of people don't really have a goal. A bunch of people think, well, I want to retire at 70, but they don't know how much money they need to have at 70, or I want to retire at 55. I want to get rich early or whatever. But they don't have any kind of plan in place. You can set all of your own variables to what you want, uh, and you can see what you need to do to kind of achieve those goals. So we're going to kind of skip ahead because the next thing he shows isn't as important. So let me jump ahead to the next part we want to get started on.
Looking at our target allocation, you can see Betterment's recommendation is 90% stocks. This is due to the time horizon, as our current age, our time to retirement, taking into account. So we're a little conservative here in our current settings. Well, if you want to adjust that, we'll click adjust, and we'll be taken to a page here to set your risk level. What we mean by risk is how much up and down can you take within the markets? So what are those likely returns, negative and positive, that you're really to take on? If you have a long time horizon, riskier allocation, more stocks versus bonds can be beneficial. If you're closer to retirement or have a lower time horizon, a less risky allocation will be benefit to you. You can follow our recommendation here on the left. That will guide you through what's maybe best for you. Right now, we're showing very conservative in our current scenario. So let's click 90% and move that up to Betterment's recommendation. You'll see now some changes to the likely one-year returns as well as the annual average return. Maybe we want to take on a little more risk. We'll update that to 93. We're still within that recommendation. So as you can see, the sliding scale here is how you can change how risky you are in that account. One neat feature is our auto adjust here. For those that want to be even more hands-off, you can enable this feature.
So this auto adjust is essentially turning on a target date fund that we talked about earlier.
And what it will do is smartly adjust your portfolio allocation over time to keep you at that recommended risk level. So shown a different way, we're going to click over here to this tab. And again, my time horizon is quite long in this scenario. So you'll see this plateau for about 10, 15 years or so. At that point, we're going to start de-risking this portfolio slowly over time towards you meeting that goal. So what it's going to do is, as you near retirement, as you near the end of that goal, we're going to take away risk. We're going to preserve the capital and the contributions you've made in order to have this in your account later on.
So that chart you see is almost exactly like the chart I showed you of what a target date fund does.
For our purposes, we're going to save this down. We always ask for feedback of what maybe prompted this. We'll skip for now. And then our target allocation is going to change. It may take a day for the funds to adjust and get reallocated, but just keep in mind that it'll show immediately here.
Okay, so that was just a sample then of what it looks like to kind of change your allocations in Betterment, as well as how much you want to save per paycheck, your distributions, but it's pretty easy to see. And if you forget and you don't know, once again, and I checked and I updated the links in the show notes beforehand this week. So I know last week people were like, it's not there. You said I could find a lot of the stuff we talked about. Again, I put in links in the description of this video so you can see, as well as different examples of how to use Betterment. And on their website, they've got tools that make it really easy to see. So that shows you just kind of how you can utilize Betterment and kind of the different tools it has. So we're at the end now. I haven't seen any questions so far. We'll give it maybe a minute or two. If people have had any other questions from this week, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. But hopefully you took from last week, we talked about the 7 different targets and goals that we wanted to start out with. And then once we kind of know where we are, we're going to hammer that goal. And it's really important to have a budget. And you can use that budget to help achieve those goals. And then if you're ready to start reducing debt, then you can find how much you can kind of extra money you have that you can put towards debt reduction and really go after it. And then from there, you can talk about growing wealth and retirement. And like I said, I would start with at least the 6% now, because you want to get started on that compounding interest, and uh, we're going to give you that 3% match. So take advantage of that 3% raise we're asking you today, because now's the time to do that. And so it all kind of funnels together, and you kind of got to know all of it. But if you know all of it, it's you can do it. Anyone can do these things. Anyone can achieve a good retirement and be successful. And I truly believe that working here with us, like kind of the Wojo McDonald's, that you have the opportunity uh, to be successful financially with what we're offering in wages and benefits would help. And once again, if there's questions you don't want to ask here on YouTube Live, I totally get it. You can talk to your GMs. They can give you my email address. My phone number is probably posted up in almost all of your. I think it's posted up in all of your restaurants. You can text me, email me, whatever you want to do. I'm not seeing any questions at this point. That means I just did a phenomenal job and it was easy to understand. So